There are many lessons that we can learn from the healing of the blind man. The main lesson would probably be this, that when it comes to the Word and the work of Christ, there are going to be different responses. For the blind man, God opened his eyes. He healed him physically. But the greater miracle in that passage was not that God gave him physical sight, but that God gave him spiritual new birth. Now, when the word and work of Christ went out to the masses as a result of the blind man, most did not believe, most rejected, most did not care. Well, in John chapter 10, Christ begins to teach in response to this incredible miracle. He says in chapter 10, verses 1 through 5, he says, "Truly I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in another way, this man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens, the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought them out, all they are his own, he goes out before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, but they do not know the voice of the strangers." Now Christ was the one who would call himself the door. He was the gateway into the sheepfold. Yet there were many around him who called themselves sheep, but they didn't even recognize Christ. They didn't even recognize the work and the word of Christ. Who were they? Well, it says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit." You know, in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus painted a very, very clear picture of the true prophet or the true apostle or the true follower of Christ and the false. The true one would bear good fruit. Why? Because God by His Spirit would dwell in him, and God would begin to produce fruit in and through him. What kind of fruit is being produced in your life today? Do you see the word and work of Christ producing humility? And do you see it producing a passion for Christ? Do you see it producing love for others? Or is it producing pride and arrogance? What's being produced in your life today? It says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 21, "Not everyone who says to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father. On that day many will say to me, 'Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, do many good works in your name?' But he will look to them and declare, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you worker of lawlessness.'" That's really what's going on in John chapter 10. There are many who claim to have a relationship with Christ, but they don't even know who Christ is. It would be an important thing for you today to look at your life and to see, is your life built on the foundation of the gospel, or are you trying to build it on your own good works? Is your life built on the finished work of Christ, or are you trying to build it on your own personal resume? Use today to ask God to settle once for all. Am I truly a servant of God who's been set free to serve Him with all of my heart, mind, strength, and soul, or am I trying to manufacture it myself?